The year is 1944. You're walking around the lake to collect cameras that you set up, but, face down in the water, you find Martha. It appears that Martha has died. My name is Elle, and just consider me your compass rose through the gruesome twists and turns of Martha is Dead. I've been a horror fan for a long time now, and did this game not feel like an excellent horror film that you could play? As always, this is a non-spoiler review of the strange tale of Martha is Dead. The first 20 minutes of the game show you, the player character Yulia, resetting cameras you set up in the woods to take images of wildlife around the lake. Upon changing the film, you notice a body floating in the water. Going to see if you can save the person, you turn it around to find your identical twin sister, Martha. She's wearing your dress and looks to have been dead for a few hours at least. In a moment of confusion, your parents mistake the dead body for Yulia and you for Martha. So now you must uncover the answers around your sister's mysterious death while taking her name and place in the family. As stated earlier, this game is set in the year 1944 in Europe. With World War II taking place in the backdrop of this terrifying tale, there are a few key elements that are strengthened by this story being a period piece. One of those elements is Yulia's hobby of photography. With the photography technology of the time, you as the player have to learn how to use and set up cameras in darkrooms to develop photos that are integral to finding the truth around Martha's death. The narrative has a great balance between the personal story of Yulia trying to come to terms with and discover the cause of death for her sister, and the ever-present historical story of being the daughter of a general in the Nazi military. Both of these angles are explored and intertwined as the story unfolds, giving the game a uniqueness both from the storytelling method as well as the dedication to the historical setting. Throughout nearly the entire game, a lot of gore is featured, and not just the gore that you see, but gore that you as the player inflict. As a fan of gore, I really liked the inclusion of it in this game. It looked believable and it had me wincing when I was prompted with various buttons on screen to do something terrible. The gore was present for good reasons, and didn't feel forced in just to be nasty, which was a good detail in my opinion. While trying to think through the situation, there are many instances where Yulia's thoughts and memories collide into some disturbing spaces. While in these exploratory spaces, there is a decent amount of visuals and mentions of self-harm. This is treading into spoiler territory, so the specifics will not be mentioned, but, as the warning in the beginning of the game would tell you, mental illness and self-harm are prevalent themes throughout the overall story of Martha is Dead. A feature that I found very nice within the game itself were specific warnings that would alert the player to the visualization of self-harm before a cutscene would show, and give the option to show a censored version before just throwing the player into the situation. It's a very modern and considerate option that I think should be present in other games regardless of genre in the future. It also shows how the game didn't need to rely on gore-based shock value alone to fit itself into the horror genre, as so many works of media find themselves doing. After developing the photos taken, I would describe the horror style of Martha is Dead as highly disturbing active horror. This game was engaging the entire time, with lots of twists and turns that keep the player guessing even after the game had concluded. This game is visually stunning, which is beautiful most of the time, and incredibly disturbing at others. The game's core horror is based in its well-written narrative and surreal visuals that have the player guessing the reality presented throughout many points in the story. It's through this narrative being presented that makes this game feel so cinematic and engaging throughout its entire run. The game's relation to exploring mental illness in an era where we don't think of having the best mental health care existing is handled very maturely. Many times, stories that try to tackle similar themes focus on the barbarity and cruelty of the old practices and ignore the fact that mental health issues could have been treated even in 1944. On the topic of handling mental illness as a scary thing to point at, horror media is often also a bad actor. For this game to not only be a period piece, but also a horror game, and still tell this story in the optimistic light that it did, I was and am blown away by the writing and storytelling that took place. The narrative is well-rounded, it's emotional and scary, and some things are left ambiguous and vague. I personally really love stories that make me have to think about it for hours afterwards, but I understand that that's not for everyone. The gameplay style changes from one moment to the next. switching from the typical open world style exploration to the quick time event to the puzzle of sending a telegram, that the cinematic feeling of the story is maintained from one story beat to the next. I can't say for certain, but Martha is Dead may be my favorite game of this year, at least so far, and I highly recommend that you watch or play through this game to experience this tale for yourself. Thanks for watching, and until next time, don't look behind you.